Hello and welcome to this video on how to report the results of a structural equation modeling analysis. My name is Geiser. I'm an instructor and statistical consultant with QuantFish. In this video, I want to talk about the basics of what you should include in a report of structural equation modeling or confirmatory factor analysis results. So let's get started. First of all, let's talk about some basics. As with any type of statistical analysis, you should always include a detailed description of the statistical model or type of statistical analysis that you used so that other people know exactly what your model looks like. Now, this is a little bit more complicated in factor analysis and structural equation modeling because models like this can be a lot more complex than, say, a t-test or an analysis of variance. So you need to describe your model in more detail than you would for other types of analyses. And oftentimes it is useful to include a path diagram of your model. However, a path diagram showing the structural equation model may not be enough for people to learn about all the subtleties of your specification. For example, what parameters may have been constrained or fixed in some way, which parameters were freely estimated. So you need to make sure that the description of your model is good enough to where people could fit the exact same model to their own data. And so one thing that can help with that too is to publish the syntax and or output that you obtained from your statistical software package, let's say lavaan or Mplus, in some sort of appendix so that people can take a look at your syntax and your model output, and that way usually they would be able to figure out exactly what the model looked like in case it's not 100% clear from the description in your paper. Now, nonetheless, make sure that you do your very best to describe your model in sufficient detail in the paper and don't rely on people being able to decipher your computer output. Also, what should be included, as with any type of statistical analysis, is a detailed description of your sample. So very often when we read papers, we don't exactly know how the sampling procedure worked, what the underlying population is to which the results can be generalized, whether it was a random sample, also whether there was missing data, how missing data was handled. That is often not very clear, and it's very important to include that also with structural equation modeling. Next, you should always report descriptive statistics. That's probably the first thing that you want to include in your results section, is a table with descriptive statistics, specifically the means, standard deviations, and correlations of the variables. Why is that important? It's important because with that information, people can replicate your model. So if they just have access to the means, the standard deviations, and the correlations, they can generate a covariance matrix from that and use the means as well in the model. And then they can fit a structural equation model and they can verify your results or fit other models to your data. So therefore, it's very important to include those summary statistics. Also, it's always a good idea so that people can see what the actual variables, the observed variables, looked like, and not just the results of a latent model where we have factor loadings and latent parameters that are not the same as the observed data. So information on the observed variables is very important to include. You should also describe in detail how you handled missing data. So what did you do with them? Did you use listwise deletion, or did you use full information maximum likelihood estimation? How much data was missing? What is the underlying missing data mechanism that you assumed here? Missing at random, missing completely at random. And so how did you handle that? That's very important because oftentimes it's pretty obscure in papers. There's not a clear description about missing scores and how they were handled. Next, let's talk more specifically about reporting confirmatory factor or structural equation modeling results. So what, in terms of the results, the output should you include other than descriptive statistics for your manifest variables? First of all, we would typically want to look at fit statistics. So we want to know, did the structural equation model that you fit or confirmatory factor model fit your data adequately? And so for that, you should always include the chi-square test of model fit, the degrees of freedom for the model, the p-value for the chi-square, and potentially other fit statistics, fit indices such as, for example, the RMSEA, SRMR, CFI, or TLI, and maybe also statistics for comparing different models if you have multiple different models. So fit statistics are very important to include so that people can know about the fit of the model. Also, model modification indices, residuals. So if you looked at model misfit or into model misfit to see if the model fit could be improved, then that should be reported in detail as well. So did you make any changes to the model? What were they based on? Were there any large residuals? Were there any large modification indices? All that should be made transparent in your results section. So again, so if you had any post hoc model modifications, any changes to your model that were data driven, then those need to especially carefully be described so that it's clear what in terms of the model was a priori and what was due to post hoc model modifications because of a poor or insufficient model fit. Next, we would report all parameter estimates for the model that you ended up accepting. So you would want to make those available in either the path diagram, if possible, or in a table. Typically, a table is preferred because in a table you can include additional information such as parameter standard errors, which are important for people to see because they tell us something about the quality of estimation. For example, when you have larger standard errors, this could indicate that there was some problem with the model or that you maybe had an insufficient sample size for your model. So you want to check the standard errors to see if they are all nice and small. Also, a table gives you the opportunity to include test statistics for tests of parameter significance, p-values for tests of significance, and possibly also confidence intervals for the parameter estimate. So all this can be neatly included in a table, and it makes it easier to read than if you include all that information in a path diagram. So here's an example of how you could present your model to make it clear what the model looks like by using a path diagram. This is an example of a latent state trait analysis, so a longitudinal confirmatory factor analysis, which was relatively complex. There were two different constructs that were looked at here, NAB and TRB, and there were 4 different time points, 2 indicators for each time point and each construct. The model used indicator-specific traits, which are shown in the middle of the path diagram, and it used state residual factors for each time point, the SR factors that are shown on the left-hand side and on the right-hand side, and those were allowed to correlate. And then also the trait factors were allowed to correlate. So this is relatively easy to show in a path diagram. Nonetheless, you would still need to include a description of the model in the text. For example, from this picture here, it's not clear whether factor loadings were estimated or fixed, which factors may not be correlated or were not allowed to correlate. Some of that is described here in the figure caption, as you can see. So it says, for example, that state residual factors were uncorrelated except for different constructs at the same time point. So for example, SR11 and SR12 were allowed to correlate because they were measured at the same time point. And then also it is indicated that all factor loadings here were fixed to 1. Trait, state residual, and measurement error variances were freely estimated. So from that, you can pretty much understand what the model looked like that was specified. Here's an example of how to report descriptive statistics. This is a table that contains the correlation matrix for all indicators that were used in this structural equation model. You can see it's a fairly large correlation matrix. All the correlations are depicted here. And then at the bottom, you have the means and the standard deviations SD. And so I could use this input, or this matrix here, as input for fitting a model to summary data. For example, in Mplus, Mplus could read this correlation matrix without any problems and the means and standard deviations, and then from that it could create a covariance matrix, and that covariance matrix could be analyzed with a structural equation model. So this increases the reproducibility and transparency of your analysis. If you include a table like that for all observed variables that were used in your model, because then people can use that to fit their own models or to try to replicate your model. Next is an example of a model fit table. You can see here that different models were fit, model 1, model 2, model 3, for the two different constructs. For each model, a chi-square value is given, then the degrees of freedom for the model, the p-value for each model, and additional fit indices such as the RMSEA, CFI, SRMR, and the BIC for model comparisons. Now, if you had nested models, then in this table you could also include a chi-square difference test in additional columns, which may be useful as well to compare different models. For example, when you do tests of measurement invariance or something like that and your models are nested, then chi-square difference test is good to include here. So with this table we can very quickly see which model fit okay here. It was model 3 in each case, which had a non-significant chi-square p-value and also had the lowest BIC value in each case for both NAB and TRB. So a table like that is really nice to see model, to understand model fit when you fit multiple models. Also, the table note has an explanation of the abbreviations here. So RMSEA stands for root mean square error of approximation, CFI is the comparative fit index, and so on. And then also the table note explains what model 1, model 2, and model 3 were, how they differed, and so that way this table is self-explanatory, so to say, so people can understand the table without necessarily having to refer to the text. And then finally, here's an example of how you could depict parameter estimates in a report. In this case, there were so many that I couldn't fit the entire table here on the slide, but just to give you a sense for what this could look like, you can see here the trade factor loadings, the state residual factor loadings were included. Those were all fixed, so they have a little a superscript here that would be explained then in the table note as this parameter being fixed, therefore having no standard error, but standardized factor loadings are still available and those are given in the last column. Next, here are factor means that were estimated and then factor variances, and what's missing here are the residual or error variances that were also part of this table, but I couldn't fit them onto the slide here. Now, this table doesn't include test statistics, so a z-statistic or a p-value, but you could add those in additional columns, and that may be a good idea. Also, you could include confidence intervals in that table in a separate column, which may also be nice. Now, as long as you have the standard error, you could yourself calculate the z-statistic, p-value, and confidence intervals. So that's the very minimum that should be provided, a standard error. And then those other statistics could be calculated by whoever wants to do that. I hope you found this presentation useful to learn about what you should include in a report of structural equation models, and I'll see you next time.